the Portland Cable Tram. My name's Daphne. The driver's name's Ray. We're a number of over 20 volunteers, and the only paid member is our manager. And now we're coming up to the Foreshore Lagoon. It was named after a Captain James Forthrop in the 1850s. Became the first harbour master in Portland. He had been involved with the Admala ship disaster, in which he had saved 24 out of 89 people off the South Australian coast. Now he used to live over the other side of the lagoon, and in those days, to get to and from work, he used to go in a rowing boat. But he was lucky, he had a servant to do the rowing. On the left-hand side, it is tidal salt water from the sea, whereas on the right-hand side, it is a freshwater swamp. Of course, that makes an ideal environment for the habitation of birds. Now, if we look across the other side of the lagoon, you can notice there's double power lines. Between them is a railway line, and that's where the goods train travels, delivering the goods to and from Lagoon. The train brings the wheat, the barley, the canola from the Wimmera and the Mallee region, and used to bring the mineral sands from the Hamilton region, but that mine closed in October. There is a 5-kilometre cycling walking track surrounding the lagoon, as the secondary school is situated over the other side. Now on my right hand side, the circular building, it used to be part of the original old Powerhouse vintage car club. This museum has housed over 45 restored vehicles and machinery, and is open most days, all day. The grounds on my left-hand side are used to play soccer. Centre where predominantly aged pensioners meet. They socialise, play cards, bingo, bowls. The council decommissioned their bore in June '06, so now people just swim in ordinary bore water, which is heated by gas. Right hand side, we're coming up to the Portland Botanical Gardens. These are the second oldest gardens in Victoria. Gardens have over 300 different varieties of roses, over 200 different varieties of native plants, and over 170 different varieties of teas. They had got the illegal Chinese immigrants to help build the gardens, and at that time they were double the size they are now. They also had then a golf course, a tennis court, and a rotunda. An almond tree with a rock underneath it, and that rock commemorates the site of the Immigration Department building by the early 1840s. We had over 11,000 immigrants come here, mainly from the United Kingdom. We're coming up to the main entrance, and there's a tree to the right of the main entrance, which is a Moreton Bay fig tree. That tree is nearly 170 years old. Extreme right is the curator's cottage, and then in the centre of the grounds a green and white roof building, and that is the headquarters of the Croquet Club. Now this beach here on the right hand side, prior to them building the breakwaters in the 1950s, this area here then was the swimming beach, and there used to be numerous bathing boxes along here of different colours, and people buy them out. They've got rid of the bathing boxes in the 1980s. In white building on the right hand side, which is Australian Navy Cadets building. Many years ago it used to be a kiosk. On each end of it were bathing sheds. On the left hand side there's a gap on that fence there. If you can look through that gap you'll see a blue grilled gate. The Harbour Board made this road, they moved the big tunnel. The tunnel goes right on top near the courthouse where there used to be a very large jail. In the 1850s, Victoria then was still part of New South Wales, and in those days, to be able to head to South Australia, you used to have to pay a tax called reputation tax. You used to have to pay £10. If you couldn't pay the £10 to go from state to state, you were a illegal immigrant, and you were put into jail. I said at that time in the gold rush times that the Chinese are immigrants. Hotel to the left, the hotel, that hotel has the longest continuous licence in Victoria. Now this spare space of ground here on the right hand side is the trains. There behind that Norfolk pine tree, which is called the Old London, there was a hotel again that was built in the 1840s, and opposite it are 12 four-stone buildings that were built in the 1850s. Cross over the road here, immediately on my left is a large wooden pile in the ground. That is an original pile of the railway or ocean pier, which was built in 1902, and it used to go from there out to 3/4 of a mile into sea, and on it used to go the steam trains delivering the goods to the steamships and the sailing ships. Now the blue glass windowed building on my left, which is the Richmond Henty Hotel. That hotel was built on the site of Edward Henty's first house. A picture of that house is the Immigration Museum in Melbourne. Now Richmond Henty was Edward Henty's nephew. He was the firstborn child of Portland. He was born in 1836. Now Edward Henty, although he did marry, he did not have many children. The maritime divorce. Now this church to the left, which is the All Saints Catholic Church, it was built in 1857. The dome and the spire was built 30 years later. The money for the original dome and spire was donated by a lady whose husband and all her 3 sons had brought her crown and sea on different occasions. That original dome and spire was painted about 6 years ago as the spire, which is just made of iron, had all gone rusty. Then they replaced that spire about 3 years ago because it leaked. Now this Gothic building here was built in the 1800s as a convent, the convent of the Loretto nuns. That one famous nun, Vera McKillop, was made the first saint of Australia. She worked there as a governess for 2 years and taught there for 2 years before she went on to Penola in South Australia. In the late 1970s, the nuns became relatively scarce and that building turned into a private co-education. The steam train used to come up here every day with persons and goods on their way to and from Ararat. You'll see that it drops down again into a cutting. You follow the cutting through, cross over the road twice, and you're back onto the railway once again. On the right hand side, it is called Nuns Beach. It is named after those Loretto nuns who had their own bathing boxes on the beach. It's a very safe swimming beach. On my left hand side there's a large 2-storey building. It's called Seaview House. It is a 60-bed special accommodation unit but not a hostel, and it's got people who cannot fend for themselves at home. 2 lots of buildings back is the nursing home, and then on the right hand side is the hospital. Right-hand side there are 2 bluestone walls with plaques on it. Those plaques have been put on by relatives of over. It is called the Cloud Field. It was named after an Edward Henty, who was the first permanent settler pastoralist in Victoria. He came on his boat from Thistle and landed in Portland in November 1834. There's gum trees here surrounding this caravan park. We do occasionally see koalas in the trees. They do roam around the town. On my left hand side there's a brick house on the corner. That house was built in 1930 and it was built by a priest who won money in a lottery 1830. It actually was used as a stand pipe. The board was the left of it, and it used to be full of geothermal springs water that come bubbling up out of the earth at 59 degrees Celsius. Then Portland got bigger, so it built up a floors up a forked hill, which is right near the aluminium smelter. So instead of demolishing it, they converted it in about in World War II. They put a cap on top of it, a staircase inside of it, and divided it into sections. The bottom section is the armour section. We go up the stairs to the next level, which is the navy. This road leads to Whalers Bay, and on Whalers Bay you see the red top building of the Lighthouse. This lighthouse was built in 1856, and of course it was built after there had been over 17 shipwrecks in the bay. Now originally the lighthouse was built on Battery Hill. Battery Hill was a little hill behind the wheat silo in the harbour. On Battery Hill in 1889 they thought that the Russian Navy was going to invade us, so up there they built an artillery garrison consisting of 3 cannons and underground ammunition. The cannons still stand there, and they can still fire them off as they do on ceremonial occasions. So then for safety reasons they thought they'd better shift the lighthouse, which they did, stone by stone to its present site. The present light of the lighthouse shows out to 24 kilometres out to sea, and it shows by a method of red and white flashings. Volunteers, and the only paid member is our manager. Now if you look out on the ocean and the horizon there, you can see an island, and that island is Lady Julia Percy Island, and it mainly consists of rocks, seals and birds. The birds are mutton birds or nest in sheer waters, and in the winter time they migrate to Alaska. And the seals, the DSC island is 37 kilometres away from Portland. Apart from that, it's got 2 graveyards of sealers who died in the 1800s. In front front of the tram track to the left is a monument. Just past the monument's a rotunda, and that rotunda is a whaling pond or cottron. This bay used to be one of the best whaling bays in the world. The controversial first settler was William Dutton. He was a sealer. He came to this bay to shelter in a storm, and he noticed lots of whales, and that was in 1828. So he went back to Tasmania and the following year in 1829 and set up a whaling station, and he was only 18 years of age. The same year that Edward Henty arrived in 1834, William Dutton had caught 60 whales that season. So Edward Henty and others like him also hopped on the bandwagon and created whaling stations. And it's been recorded that Edward Henty in 1838 had caught over 20 whales, and those whales had rendered down to 120 tonne of whale oil. Now, whales become obsolete in the 1870s, not only because their numbers had dwindled, but because kerosene was invented and that took over as lightning fuel. You can see it looks like layers of concrete. They're actually wind tower components, or wind power components. Because we have a large manufacturer here who manufactures the wind. Now, Portland's one of two natural deep sea harbours in Australia, the other one being Albany. We get nearly 400 ships come to the harbour each year. Not only do we export wheat, barley and canola, but behind the wheat silos a thin chimney, and that's Pivot the fertiliser plant. We export fertiliser. You'll see two piles of wood chips. Those wood chips get sent to Japan, Korea and China and made into cardboard. We also export wood logs. The wood chip pile on the right hand side is a lighter coloured one. That's the Pinus radiata, the pine tree that grows on the way to Mount Gambier. The softwood gets made into toilet paper and babies' nappies, and the wood chip pile to the left is the native blue gums, the hardwood. We are at present the biggest exporter of the hardwood wood chips in the world. Now from Bunbury, Western Australia, and the ship that brings it takes 4 days to get here. And that alumina is sucked up or vacuumed up by a conveyor belt that goes along the big concrete pipe that runs along the whole length of the wharf there, that goes right up the smelter where it is stored. We also pour petroleum coke, lignite and chloride for the smelter, and of course we export ingots from the smelter. In that green shed used to be stored the mineral sands from the Luca resources in the Hamilton region, and that mine closed in October. And we also export live sheep and cattle. We have large feedlots at the end of Cape Nelson, and Cape Nelson's about a quarter of an hour's drive and straight ahead in front of us. Out there are feedlots and a very tall lighthouse. Those feedlots could hold up around 125,000 sheep at a time. The sheep are held in those pens or paddocks for a week so that they get used to a diet of pellets. Now it takes 20 days for the sheep and cattle ship to get from here to the Middle East. And of course, if you're exporting cattle, you also have to export. We have a large fishing export industry in abalone, which is round to the left in Dutton Way, trawling, Squiddle, Calamari and rock lobster. Now the Squiddle Calamari fishing boats differ from the other fishing boats that they have numerous lights above the deck. They have a 4-month season, and it's the lights that attract the Squiddle Calamari within the surface. These lights are so strong that the fishermen have to wear sunglasses and suntan lotion, and these Squiddle Calamari, they emit a horrible black ink. Now on my left hand side there's a pole there with lots of lights on it, a lot of blue rubbish bins. On the other side of it are fish cleaning tables, especially during the tuna season. A lot of the fishing boats come in with a lot of fish, and the seals follow them in and hang around there hoping for a feed. Just as we can see it from here, just to the right hand side of those ships, you can see it looks like layers of concrete. are actually wind tower components, or wind power components. Like what? Oh, windmill blades. Because we have a large manufacturing customs house. It was built in 1849. And to the right of it, that building was built in 1880, originally as the post office. And then opposite is the Max Hotel, built in 1856-57. And to the left of that is a tiny bluestone building which was used as the rocket house. That's where they used to house the rockets that they used to fire off to the sailing ships and rough seas, ropes to hold them together. To the left of that is another bluestone building that was built in 1863 as the town hall. House, a genealogical museum over to the public. If you can notice over the wharf there, the harbour there, there's a B triple truck up on an elevator. That elevator is called a rocket launcher. They're emptying out the wood chips. The wood chips are very wet and sticky. When they've got an elevator, see that truck is going up, goes up for nearly 90 degrees, about 80 degrees. There is no driver in the truck. China insists that the wood logs be fumigated, so they have to take the ship over to the inner aspect of that long empty pier. They hatch down, fumigated, and their crew stays somewhere in town for a couple of days. Now just to the right hand side where that truck is, in front of it, you can see a fishing boat there with the lights above the deck. It's a Squiddle Calamari fishing boat. Just see it to the left. Notice it's different than the others. I think the other trawling boats are all out the sea anyway. But that Squiddle Calamari, their season doesn't start till about December. Over 4 months season. Right ahead in front of us is a canal. In that canal are the 2 pilot boats. Also that canal's a yellow boat. The yellow boat is the search and rescue boat, the Coast Guard. Grounds to the left, in the summertime as you can see it's club cricket. You can just, they've just, well, club cricket was held yesterday, I think, or yesterday, Taiwan kids. And in the winter time it's football for the under 16-year-olds, that is Australian rules. And behind the pavilion are lawn tennis courts. Very lovely, and then we have an underground water stream called the Dutton Aquifer, which is 1.5 kilometres deep. Well, there's a little baby plover there. Thankfully we don't have any water restrictions. Now the building with the red roof is our depot. Inside that building is a museum, the Model Railway Club and the small theaterette, which shows an original video of how the tram used to run in the late 1800s to the 1940s. Admission is free and there's also toilet facilities. The main automated, prior to that we used to just push it around by hand.